guess what we are going to be building today? We are going to be building a React app. And this isn't just any React app. We are going to be doing this throughout a series. Starting out with the very basics of React, talking about TypeScript, why we use hooks, and just building a really strong foundation. By the end of this course, by the end of these tutorials, you will have this really interesting project that you can put in your portfolio, have a piece that you can talk about to future employers, and just have extra skills to build your own React app. So what exactly are we building? Well, today in this tutorial, we are going to be building the start of a React to-do app. Now, this seems kind of small, but hear me out. We need to start with a very good foundation, very strong foundation, and work up from there. So in this video, it'll be building a React to-do app, but this whole application we are building, we're going to be doing it together. I'm going to be putting it on GitHub so you can pull the code, modify it, make some changes to it, and I will ensure to check out your changes, and then we will be building this collaboratively. The goal for this app, though, is to build a productivity app. So essentially what it will be is a bunch of different tabs. One will be the to-do list, the other will be a Pomodoro app, the other will be, what else are we going to build? To-do list, Pomodoro app. I guess leave your suggestions down below. Essentially, I want this to be an application that has a bunch of different productivity tools all encompassed into one app. Okay, let's just jump right into it. But before we get into the code, we really need to talk about what is TypeScript and what exactly are hooks and why do we use them. When you think of TypeScript, what really helped me get my head around it at first is thinking of it such as JavaScript with additional features. It can help build and manage JavaScript projects. It's a superset of typed JavaScript, which really means that all valid JavaScript code is also valid TypeScript code. Okay, but why exactly is TypeScript useful? Here are some advantages to using TypeScript. Strict typing. Everything stays as to what we define it. You need a variable to always be a string, it will always be a string then. Type annotations. This is a helpful way of explicitly defining what type should be used. And readability. Thanks to strict typing, you can see more into the intent of the developers who originally wrote the code. This becomes especially helpful for larger projects and teams, having code that can speak for itself. Okay, then why do we use hooks? React has been around now for a while, and hooks were recently introduced, well, actually back in 2019, so a few years ago. But why are they so popular, and why do we use them now? Hooks allow you to essentially hook into the state and use other React features without having to write a class. There are several different hooks available to use, and we'll use some of them in our application. Some of the popular ones include useState, which helps pass in the state variables in a functional component, useEffect, which comes into play for any side effect that needs to be performed after updating the DOM. It can take two arguments, a function and an optional array. And useContext, which helps build a context API. It is used to share data without having to pass props. Before hooks came along, we would have to use classes for React components in order to use state and other React features. Hooks provide a more flexible and simpler way to do this. Okay, let's get into coding now. Okay, you can see up here I have my terminal. Ooh, I just realized it is in light mode. Am I going to get in trouble for that? I feel like some of you might come after me for this. Okay, but in all seriousness, now let's cd into the folder that we want to make this application in. I am going to do it in my desktop, which unfortunately I feel like I do everything in and turn. It is just a disaster, but that's okay. From desktop, you either can use npm or yarn. For this tutorial, I will be using npm. npx, create React app, and then the name of our app, which in this case is starting as a to-do app, but it's really going to expand. So let's just call it, what should we call it? React project? It's kind of boring. Let's just call it React project, because who knows, the possibilities of where we will take this project as we are making it open source are limitless. Okay, from here, let's cd into our project, which, as I mentioned, was React project. And let's go npm start, which will start our server. And as you can see, we have it up and running. Okay, let's now open VS Code. So I'm actually going to, give me a sec here, I'm actually going to stop this server and open up the terminal in VS Code. So back here, I have my React project open and I will go to terminal, new terminal. Okay, next up, let's go into source, into app.js, where they have some code they gave us to start with. However, right now we are going to get rid of everything between the two div tags. So let's just take this. And let's just put some kind of placeholder text for now. This is where our to-do list will go. Okay, the first thing we want to create for this app is, let's start simple. Let's start with a title or header. For that, we are going to create a new file in source. So right click, go new file, and let's call this file title. Make sure it's not all in capitals. And then from here, make sure the first thing is that you actually import React from React. And let's start title equals. Start by just making a simple function and returning the each one, which will be called, what should we call this? The never-ending to-do list. And then make sure, as always, to export the component or the function that we just created, export default title. Okay, now let's go to localhost where our server is running, and you can see we have here, this is where our to-do list will go. But it should actually, there we go. And the reason we are seeing this text is because we are reading from app.js, not title.js. So we need to then utilize our title.js file. So back in app.js, let's import title from title. And we don't need this logo anymore, so I'm actually going to delete it. And then replace this text with our title component. And then when you are using components like this, you just need to, it's a self-closing tag, which is really nice as well. So now let's go back to our React app, and we can see we have the never-ending to-do list. Okay, next up, we need to have some mock data to test this application with before we start making our own. So we are going to make a JSON file under source as well. And let's call this mock to-dos.json. And inside of here, it's going to be a simple JSON file that includes the task that we are working on, if it's complete or not, and a unique ID. Okay, I'm going to take this object here and make a few more. Now let's format it by going Option-Shift. You know, you have commands that you do on the keyboard and they're just so second nature, you actually kind of forget what they are and your hand just does them. That was one of them. Okay, so let's just update a few more of these here. Okay, then back in app.js, let's import this mock to-dos. So import. And you can see here I put to-dos, that's just giving the data a name. The next thing we are going to do, still inside app.js, is we are going to read the to-dos from the mock to-dos JSON. And to do that, we need to use state. And before we do anything, make sure at the top of this file we are importing this state. So import React and also use state from React. And we are going to make two constants. One is going to be the actual to-dos, to-do list, and the other one is going to be we are going to set the to-dos. All right, let's just call it to-do. I feel like to-dos is not. And that will equal to use state and to-dos. And what we need to do next is create a file and create a component called, let's name it to-do list, which will contain or hold all of our to-dos. So still under source, go new file, and let's create this to-do list.js. And we don't really need to do anything in this file right now. I just really want to create it to start with. And then back in app.js, we are going to, underneath title, do to-do list. And that will be equal to, that will contain the to-do, which is the to-dos. Okay, I feel like this needs to be to-do list. There we go. And let's also, we have to make sure to import this new component, to-do list. Perfect. Now, if we go back into our to-do list component, we actually need to map over the to-do list object that we are passing in, or in our case, calling it to-dos. So let's go to to-do list.js and create this component. And then we are going to pass in the to-dos, which are right here, pass in this object, to-dos. But we also need to create a component that is just a singular to-do, as we are going to be mapping over all of the to-dos, and we need something to display just the individual ones. I feel like I could get, what is that saying? I could get $1 for every time I say to-do, I'd be rich. To-do. So for that, let's start creating another component in the file, to-do.js. For now, we're going to leave it just as is and import it back in the to-do list. So import to-do from. Before we carry on, as always, what am I missing? Export. Make sure to export, or else there'll be a headache coming in your future. Okay, now here we are going to map over the to-dos object. Here we are going to return the individual to-do. Okay, let's format this. There we go. Now, if we go into the singular to-do, the purpose of this is so we can have, the purpose of this is when we are mapping over the singular to-do, we can also add the strike through or add specific styling to it individually. So import React from React. I know some of these things seem repetitive, but it's one of those things that the more you practice it, such as importing React or exporting your component, the less issues you will have in the future, as it will stick in your head. And then for here, we are going to pass in the object to do, and then access this object to do dot. What is our to-do? Let's go back here. To-do dot to-do. Might not be the best naming convention, but here we are. Okay. Let's go back to our application and see what we have going on here. Okay, so as you can see in our terminal, we do have some warnings, and if I actually go to our localhost 3000, you can see if we go to console here that there is some errors. Cannot read properties of undefined reading map. The best thing is though, it goes into a lot of depth. You know, it's just like, I think the red sometimes scares people when they think of bugs, but look, it says to-do list on line 6. And if you go here as well, to-do list. Okay, so let's go, to-do list is never assigned a value. Is assigned a value but never used. Okay, so what's going on? App.js, let's find our bugs here. Oh, I see. Do you know what's going on? Is I'm labeling it to-dos and it's here, to-do list. There we go. This should cleared up a bit of them, as you can see. Set to-do is assigned a value but never used. I think that should be okay for right now. Okay, we're also, if we go back, you can see we're having some troubles with map being undefined. So let's go to to-do list here, and it is saying to-dos is undefined. Let's just log it out to start with. And see why that is. So it's coming in undefined. Oh, you know why it is? It's because, oh no, it shouldn't matter, should it? What is going on, my friend? This is the reality of being a coder. Okay, we are back, and the reason it was throwing to-dos is undefined is because there is no to-dos. See, this is the reality. Even if you've been coding for 5 years, 10 years, the littlest things will still get you sometimes, and you just have to kind of find the humor in it. So as you can see, we are still getting a warning about set to do coming from the app component here. That is fine, don't worry, we will take care of that later on here. But for now, let's close this. And we can see we have our list showing up. So that is a success, that's a big win. Next up, now that we have our to-do list, let's make a way, let's add some styling that when a to-do is actually done. If you remember back to our mock data we made where it's a Boolean, so either set to true or false. When it is set to true, it's complete. The styling on this to-do will change. And here we will do a ternary expression. So saying, if something is true, show something, if not, show something else. So in this case, if to do dot, what is it? Let's go back to it, done. If to do dot done is, if the to do dot done is true, then we will do, what color should we do? Red. We'll make it red. Otherwise, don't do anything. Okay, so then if we go into our index.css here, you can see we have some code already, but right now we're just going to take it out. We don't need anything that exists. And we are going to make a new class here. Let's call this complete. And what this will do is simply the color will change to, let's do crimson, a nice red. And now I actually changed this to complete because this is the class name. And as you can see, Learn React.js is now crimson or red. Based on this mock to do, Learn React.js done is true. Okay, we're getting there, we are getting here. Now, rather than relying on this static data, mock data, that tells us if a task is done or not, let's make a function that toggles based on if it is, let's make a function that we can control if it is done or not. And this is pretty simple to do. And for this, we will need to go back to app.js as that is where all the state resides. So in here, we will do const toggle, and that will be set to the unique ID that we made for each of this data. And in here, we can use let item equal we're going to map over the to-do list, and then for each to-do we will return the to-do.id, and if it is equal to the ID we selected, or passing in, sorry, then we will use a spread operator. Here, unexpected token. Okay, let's go back here and see what we did. Let's just finish this. Set to-do list. Okay, there we go. This should be good to go. Oh, one more error. Set to-do list is not defined. That's okay. We will define it. It's because I called it set to do up here. So let's just change that to set to do. Okay, now what we need to do is, there was a little pause in the video because the camera actually overheated. So it's getting intense here, we're getting serious. We have to actually use or call the we actually have to use the toggle function. So we are going to be passing this into the to-do list, of course. And for that, back in to-do list, let's go. Toggle equals toggle. And then we also need to handle that in the actual to-do list. So if we go here and we go into the to-do, we need to pass in so it knows about the handle toggle as well. So toggle, toggle. And then in the to-do, so we have it passed into the to-do list. As you can see, we're passing it down to to-do list. And from to-do list, we're passing it down to to-do. And then in to-do, we actually need to handle the click. So here, let's go above, return, and handle this click. So the event, and we need to pass in as well the toggle, toggle dot, pass in the event and current target dot ID. Now let's see, I feel like I'm getting some errors, but what's new? And then for this handle click, we will need to do in the return an on click, and that will be equal to the handle click. We also haven't yet done the ID, which we need to pass in. So the ID is equal to the to-do.id. So now you can see we can toggle if it is done or not.
Okay, we're ending this video very casually because there's a lot of construction going on inside my house, but thank you for following along for this React tutorial. There is going to be more to come. This is an open source project. We're going to continue to build together. So it was a very simple application that we built today, but we are going to get more and more complex. I just really want to start out with the foundation. I'll see you soon. Thanks, everyone.